Hello, AC Cobble, and welcome to the Fantasy Author Lounge. Pleasure to have you here. How you doing?
Hi, Ben. I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Good.
Glad I could join you today.
Tell us about yourself. Tell us about your books for those people out there who haven't come across you before. Who are you? What do you write?
I've been doing it for a couple of years now. I've got actually have my eighth book just about to come out,
Nice.
and I've got two series that people may be aware of. My first one was Benjamin Ashwood,
Hmm.
and that's definitely what I'm known for best. And it's kind of like a farm boy with a sword fantasy.
Yeah.
So like I think of like kind of a lot of those like '90s era authors like Robert Jordan and
Hmm.
Raymond E. Feist, David Eddings, Terry Brooks, like a lot of that. So that similar kind of feel for that fantasy, like young boy goes on an adventure with mysterious
Yeah.
strangers. Sounds awful when you say it like that. That type of fantasy, but updated, hopefully for more like modern era. Kind of took my spin where it's that same comfortable sort of easy reading, but the guy's not secretly the grandson of a wizard, or oh
Yeah.
hey, your dad was the king, and shockingly you're able to help save the day
Yeah.
because you have these
How did that
mystical
happen?
powers that you've just inherited.
Yeah, that
But
old trope.
like how does a regular Joe go from the farm to be the hero?
Mm.
But similar type of feel as a lot of those fantasies. So if you like those, I think you'll like that. And then my current series, so that was a 6 book series that is completed now. I may do a spinoff, but
Mm.
it's a complete arc right now. If anybody wants something that's finished,
Amazing.
my current series is a little more darker, a little more sexier,
Mm.
um, kind of gone for, like multiple points of view. And it's hard to explain, but there's a lot of influences where we've got sort of a similar epic fantasy type story, but we've got more like 1750s colonial England,
Mm.
and they kind of travel all over the world. So there's this high seas adventure,
Amazing.
a little bit of a steampunk feel, but not too heavy into that. Give it some flavor. And there's this kind of like dark occult sorcery that's going on. That
Mm.
so our hero and his sidekick are trying to solve. So the
Hmm.
hero's kind of an Indiana Jones type guy, but also part of the royalty. And then his sidekick is this kind of priestess who's been trained to deal with this awful occult sorcery, and
Right.
she's kind of a rowdy, likes to drink and have a good time.
Sounds great.
There's a little bit of like dark sorcery. There's a little bit of epic fantasy, a little bit of high seas adventure. So it's kind of a mishmash that
Mm.
I wasn't worried. I didn't know if I could pull it off, but so far reviewers seem to like it. So
Yeah, I've been seeing those reviews as well. I mean, you're lining up a load of boxes of things that I like and just ticking them one after the other with that series. So I'm really looking forward to digging into the rest of it. Is it book two is out? Coming out?
book two is December 1st.
There we
So
go.
depending on when we get this up, it may or may not be.
Nice.
But
Hopefully, yeah.
December 1st, we'll have the ebook and the print will be live then, and there's audio on this series with Simon
Ooh.
Vance, who
Ooh.
great narrator,
Hmm.
really perfect voice for this kind of um, time
Hmm.
period and this kind of setting. He really knocked it out of the park.
That's
The
amazing.
audio won't be December 1st, but it should be in December. Just got to get through all of those quality controls
Yes.
and checks and this kind of stuff. So
Yeah, the classic
it's
stuff.
recorded, but we've got to do the side.
Yeah, that's cool. And I noticed you're wearing your own sort of cartographer swag right here as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, of
That's
course,
great.
since we're going to be showing this video
That's
around,
it. Why not? I'll just go quickly put on my M&S guitar.
change.
That's it. Nice. Well, let's go back to Benjamin Ashwood because obviously, as you said, that is the series you're most well known for. I mean, obviously, it's been very successful as well. You've had lots of copies sold, lots of reviews. It's been out, long enough to really capture people's interests. And we're seeing a lot of, books, both indie and traditional, getting film options at the moment. So I was just curious if, for instance, Benjamin Ashwood was converted into an epic film series, who would play Ben, the hero of the saga, in your mind?
That's I've gotten asked that before, and it's a tough question for me because I'm not saying, oh, he's got green eyes and blonde hair and
Right,
he's
yeah.
6'2" or
Mm.
whatever. It's meant to be open ended.
Interesting.
Um, But of course, if it was ever made into a film, we've got to have somebody.
Yeah.
I think what would be cool is what's his name? Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Oh yeah, good
It's,
choice.
I think he's a great actor. He can, part of this is this kind of coming of age, and I
Hmm.
think he's got the range to be this kind of innocent farm boy who then
Yeah,
goes on to be this, action
yeah,
hero. And
yeah.
he's something you look at him, you don't think like that guy's going to be an action star. But in some of his movies, he really
Yeah,
is.
it's really good. I mean, yeah, he's one of my favorite actors, JGL, and it's yeah. If you're watching, Joseph, just send an email to AC.
And I will say yes.
That's it. That's good. Yeah, good choice. Yeah, who knows what will come for the future of Benjamin Ashwood with such success
I
behind you.
think it's funny to me too, is a lot of people, it's more like in young adult books or like romance books. It's always like, oh yeah, that guy, they've got the eye color right, or they've got
Yeah,
these types of things, and
yeah,
I mean, I get that, if you're
hmm
the tween reading the romance or
yeah,
whatever, like and you're
yeah,
thinking about Twilight or something, he's got to have the
mm,
look.
mm.
But to me, it's more like the attitude, who has
That's
the right
it.
attitude, and
Mm.
I think for fantasy, it's like if they nail that attitude, you've got the makeup on and all that kind of
That's it.
stuff anyway. So it's
Mm, yeah. I thought that a bit with sort of, I don't know how to correctly pronounce his last name. It's either Carville or Cavill. I think it's like my English part of me wants to say Carville, but Henry Carville from
yeah,
obviously
yeah.
the Superman who's now become the Witcher. And at first I was a bit like, that's an interesting choice based on physical appearance, based on the
Yeah.
games. And then actually, like you said, the attitude, as more trailers started to come out and things like that, the attitude is there. I think it works quite well. So yeah, you make a great point. So let's move on to the Cartographer series, which, as you said, newest series, sword and sorcery with an epic flair, like you said. What draws you to the sword and sorcery genre, the epic fantasy genre?
Yeah, so I think, obviously one thing, of course, just simply I grew up reading that, so it's what's comfortable, it's familiar.
Hmm.
But I think more than that too is fantasy has this huge potential for imagination.
Yeah,
Of course it's fantasy. You make it whatever you want it
yeah,
to be, but in that context of we're just, completely blank page, it also allows you to tell a lot of truth.
right.
So, hey, there may not be dragons,
Hmm.
in whatever is going on, but like, kind of like talking about Benjamin Ashwood, how you can kind of tell a true story about how a hero comes to be, even if in our real world there's not really, people fighting monsters and things like that. There are some core elements
Hmm.
that I think you can invest a lot in fantasy, and you've
Hmm.
got the blank canvas to make it whatever you want, and then insert whatever you want, and whatever truth you want
Hmm.
into this just entire imaginary world. So I really like that ability as a storyteller.
Mm.
I enjoy that a lot. Another genre I like to read is like spy thrillers and things like
Yeah.
that. And it's like, yeah, it's really cool. There's a lot of exciting action, but you don't have as much of a blank canvas
Mm.
because it's got to be based on the real world. You've got to be based on, what is possible for a spy to do,
Hmm.
or, what geopolitical things are happening.
Yeah.
You kind of so it makes sense to a reader where fantasy you can throw a dragon in or a werewolf or whatever you
Mm.
want. So I really enjoy just being able to take it wherever you want to take it.
Hmm.
And then it's just so much fun to be able to, yeah, let's give them a sword and some magic and
Yeah. Exactly. That's that beauty, like you say, that pure entertainment, pure imagination, the ability to dream up whatever you want with kind of few, if any, I would say, limits. Maybe the limits being the actual language or the book format
Mhm.
and media itself. But yeah, that's what I love about fantasy as well. And it's a lot that's come up a lot in the fantasy author lounge is that just scope and the blankness of the canvas that you get to play with.
Yeah.
And yet still, like you say, rooting it in, you know, real stories, stories of accomplishment, of overcoming evil, that sort of thing. Yeah, it's great.
You think like romance or something like that. It's like whether it's paranormal romance or historical romance or any sort of romance.
Mm.
It's like there's always this like, oh well, they have to meet cute.
Hmm.
There's some sort of resistance that's keeping them from each
Hmm.
other, and they overcome that. And in the end, they're together, and it's like whatever setting you put in, you're kind of And I mean, romance people may eviscerate me for saying that, but in ways you're telling the same story. Where with fantasy, it's entirely different
Mm.
stories.
Mm.
I mean, you look at like a Game of Thrones versus, anything like my books,
Yeah.
everybody, of course, as a fantasy author, everyone's like, well, oh, you write fantasy, is it like Game of Thrones? It's like, No, it's not at all, but it is fantasy.
Yeah.
It's yeah, there's swords and magic, and
Mm.
yes, it's very similar. But read those books, and it's nothing
Yeah.
like anything else. And so, yeah, that's what I like is
Mm.
it has the opportunity to surprise you.
Really does. Yeah. And then, I mean, it's just the excuse of just putting in, like you said, dragons and magic at the same time to kind of like,
That's
even
the
though
point.
yeah,
Always put a dragon in it.
that's, I do that for the readers, but well, I say I do it for the readers. In all honesty, it's for myself. So, talking about writing, then, and going kind of deeper into the process and the creative process that you have coming, and obviously your love for the genre combined with that, what does your writing schedule look like? Because from what I know of you in our little Slack group that we have, it seems like you're one of the authors out there that seems to write quite a lot quite quickly.
I try to, not as much as I want to, but
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm fortunate. I've been able to do this full time for a little over 2 years now,
Mm.
which obviously makes it a lot easier.
Mhm.
But I went full time, of course, so that I could. I was traveling a lot at my day job. I was on the road about 25% of the time, and very busy with that. So a lot of the reason I quit was to spend time with the family.
Mhm.
Obviously, I enjoy writing. Anybody who enjoys writing starts it as a hobby, and
Mhm.
the idea of making that a career is, of course, the dream. But you
Yeah.
never really think it's going to happen. But so a lot of what I want to spend time with the family.
Mm.
Which so now it's like instead of it's easy when it's like, oh, I need to focus on my day job because I have a boss and they're going to fire me. Got to spend time writing because that is how we make the money now. But also, you want to be able to spend time with the family, and
Exactly.
then it's like, oh, is the wife going to fire me now?
She's the ultimate boss, isn't she? She's like, the CEO.
So how that works out is, wake up in the morning, spend a little bit of time with the kids doing breakfast.
Mhm.
Help. I get to walk my oldest kid to the school bus every day.
Mm.
So that's part of, you get to do that family time, which,
That's good.
is why I quit my job.
Yeah.
But then, come back in, pour a cup of coffee, and about 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm sitting down at my desk.
That's good.
I always wish that I was able to do it at like 5:30 in the morning and get some time in before the kids wake up.
Yeah.
Many times I set my alarm clock, it doesn't seem to quite work out.
I know. I know that feeling. I don't even have kids.
So I get in about 8 o'clock and try and get maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours in, and
Mhm.
then I usually need a break. So I'll take a dog for a walk, do about a mile with her, and kind of get my blood flowing a little
Mhm.
bit. And that's always good also to think like, okay, I've been writing, like, I've got some ideas in my head, and I can kind of work those out on the walk.
That's good.
What else am I going to write about? How am I going to turn this, make it a little bit better?
Mhm.
Then come back in, write another hour. I'll eat lunch at the house usually,
Mhm.
and then write about 3 or 4 more hours. So it's and by writing, I also mean doing all kind of the other administrative
Yeah.
stuff that comes with an author. It's unfortunately about 50% writing and 50% other.
Mm.
And some of
Yeah.
it's like doing this.
Yeah.
This is writing time or my work
Yeah.
time. But typically, so that's kind of how it goes for me. Is and then I finish up about 4:30 or so.
Okay.
In
Not
our
bad.
house, I always like to cook,
Mm.
so I'm our chef. So 4:30 or so, I'll either maybe open a bottle of wine or
Yeah.
crack a beer.
That's it.
So it's about an 8.5 hour day of
Mm.
like work time. But then I do some stuff in the evenings. I'll do stuff on the weekends too because this is my job now,
Yeah.
but it's also still my hobby. And
Exactly.
hey, I get like a free hour while the kids are, napping or
Mm.
not busy on the weekends, like I'll sit down and write for an hour.
Mm. Mm.
So, and or, the wife goes off, with the girls or something on a girls' night,
And you're
you
there.
know, if I'm in the middle of, a cool battle scene or something, yeah, I'll sit down and write a little bit too. So.
You're there cracking another beer as she goes out, like, yeah, in a bit.
Hey, yeah, I mean it's the standard write drunk, edit sober, but always good advice. But yeah, if you're in the middle of a battle scene and you got the beer, it does sometimes
It does sometimes help,
help words
doesn't
flow a little
it?
bit.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I think that's probably, that's come up quite a few times in Fantasy Author Lounge. Just like, just the occasional tipple, just a, a little sip of
Yeah,
whiskey, a little beer or two, just kind of gets, I don't know, I find it just kind of relaxes that doubtful mind in your head a little bit. shuts it up,
It's
which
like
is good.
it's the exact same as like playing any sort of bar game like darts or pool or something.
Mm,
It's like you have one or two beers, like you get a little bit better.
yeah.
You have that fourth or fifth beer and things start getting a little
Yeah.
sloppy.
So you're talking about obviously 50% of the time being admin author work. Obviously that comes with the sort of self-publishing and even some of the hybrid publishing that, we authors do. And you seem to be quite an expert in self-publishing, obviously being, from the success of your books, particularly the Benjamin Ashwood books. It's great to see. But if you were to be able to go back to the start of your career, even when it was maybe more of a hobby and you're working on the first couple of books, what would you say if you could go back to visit your younger self-publishing self? What would you say to him, and what advice would you give him?
Now that I'm in it as a career, I know that that's possible. And originally, I didn't know that that was possible,
Mm,
and so I wasn't approaching it like a career. So I think for anybody who's really if you want to be a writer and you want that to be your job, you've got to treat it like you want it to be your job.
right.
So in my previous career, I went to school, I got a graduate degree, I had years and years of professional experience, and I ended up with a job I was really happy with.
Mm.
But it wasn't my first job. There was a lot of work that had to go into it
Mm.
to get to that point. And I think writing is the same way. Is if you want it to be a job, you've got to do a lot of work. And there's a lot of fun stuff like world building and kind
Mm.
of drawing up all this stuff and like, yeah, let's throw in a dragon. That's the fun stuff, and
Yeah.
you get to do all that as an author, but you also have to do the not as fun work stuff. So I've got my writer hat. That's the fun, just pure creative stuff. But I've got my publisher hat too, and so
Mm.
part of that is you got to do the work on the ads and the marketing. But even before that, going back to my pre publication self is
Mhm.
you got to think about the market. You've got to think about, do readers want to read this?
Mm.
I always say like, oh, I was writing the book I wanted to read, which is totally true. Going back in time, it's like, write the book that you want to read.
Yeah.
Also, I'm sure some other people want to read it too. you know like it's
True.
fun to write the book you want to read, but you have to be able to market it,
Mm.
and to be able to market it, somebody else has got to want to read it.
Mm.
So I don't think like be a cold-hearted, just pure commercial about these types of
Mhm.
things. But there's a reason sometimes publishers won't take on a book, and it might be because nobody's going to want to read that book. So going back in time, I think I was fortunate. I stumbled into stuff that
Mm.
other people wanted to read.
That's great.
I
Yeah.
take some more time to make sure, hey, like, is this actually
Mhm.
a good book that others are going to want?
Mhm.
And approach every step along the way with that mindset of like, hey, I'm doing this for fun.
Mm.
But if I want it to be more than just fun, I've got to treat it like it's more than just fun. So,
Mm.
do all the right stuff of like packaging. Like, let me get a good cover for, make sure it's going to sell to the market. Make sure it's the right quality. Make sure
Mhm.
you've gone not just like, oh yeah, I wrote this first draft and threw it out there. It's like, no, you really need to edit it.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
spend that time on editing it. Get help from other people. If you can afford it, editors. If you can't afford it, get some other authors to swing at it. Because you're going to have typos in there. Even after professional editing, you're going to have typos in there. You don't realize that type of stuff, like how hard it is to
They do,
get.
yeah.
So you got to do that work. If you want people to see it as a high quality product that they're going to pay you for,
Mhm.
it's got to be that level. So
Mhm.
I would do that stuff up front. I didn't have professional editing. I didn't have like a professional cover and all that stuff originally with Benjamin Ashwood, and I was
Mhm.
lucky I went back and did it.
Yeah, amazing.
Out for a couple months, I got the editing, I got a new cover, and those types of things. And it was after that where it really took off to the point I could think of this as a job. And
Yeah.
so doing that stuff up front, not wasting any like early effort or early momentum, I think
Mm.
is something to think about. And it's a hard thing to break out into and do this full time, but it's even
Mm.
harder if you haven't done the legwork up front. So.
Mm. Absolutely, I completely agree. Yeah, it's that business-minded foundation, which I think, yeah, saves so much time, like you said,
Mhm.
going through, and saves you from realizing stuff later down the line. I did the same thing. I didn't get my cover redone, but what I did is I went back and professionally edited, yeah, a manuscript that I probably shouldn't have put out. In all fairness, at the start, it just wasn't ready. So, yeah, it's interesting, and I think, yeah, I wonder how many years I would have shaved off kind of where I am now, would I've got there earlier. But I mean, part of that, yeah, I mean, obviously we're talking about the fictional time traveling situation here. But I think, yeah, obviously if you start off with the business mindset, you do save yourself some time. But, you will inherently learn things and develop and grow. And you kind of almost need to go through some of that learning process. But yeah, I agree. You need to set yourself up in the right way to learn the right things and the right methods.
Yeah, there's so much to it. I mean, we don't know it all today. I mean, I think we both agree. There's so much more that we don't know. But having that publisher hat on from the beginning and thinking about the business side as well as the creative side, I think. Yeah, it can save an awful lot of us a lot of time.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. All right, so in terms of marketing, because you mentioned obviously, yeah, a lot of marketing to do. You've got to do the ads, you've got to do things like that. What do you reckon? I mean, it might be for you, it might be for the general author, but what are currently the best tools in the author kind of toolbox, marketing toolbox at the moment?
I think the difficulty is it's a constantly changing landscape, because so kind of the standard stuff, people do advertising on Amazon. There's BookBub, advertising as well as these featured deals, which nobody can get.
Damn you!
You've got all these like mini BookBubs that are out there. And then you've got other forums like R Fantasy on Reddit. You've got newsletters and all this stuff. And what I would say is, whatever is good today is not going to be good tomorrow. What's good tomorrow is not going to be good the day after that. So you've got to, I think what you do is you get all those tools in your tool belt and you rotate through them because during some periods, some stuff's going to work better than others. And you've got to always be on your toes and shift through it. One thing I've found consistently what has helped and worked for me is advertising on Amazon. It gets more expensive and less expensive, and you've got to adjust. And sometimes your ads just don't seem to work at all for reasons you can never find out.
That sounds about right.
You're advertising on the retailer, and you can target authors of books that are very similar to yours.
I know, right? It's great.
You think that that's the tool you want. Those are the tools you want. Is getting those. You've got the right readers. You've got the right audience on Amazon with AMS. So I think consistently that one, sometimes it gets more expensive than I like, but it has gotten me results. Sometimes Facebook works. I'll go through like 6-month periods where I'm like, this has not sold a single book and I have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
So you've got all that other stuff. And then I'll say this, aside from just like, the basics that you can get courses on and have all these platforms, the secret sauce is having networks of other authors. So, we've been fortunate. We've interacted with each other before, we've met, and then we get the opportunity to do stuff like this.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where a lot of the magic is. Like, no amount of Facebook, no amount of BookBub or all that stuff is going to get you as consistently good results as having a good network of authors. So I definitely encourage people, when you're starting out, is like, look for like-minded people, look for people who write similar books. You link up to them, and you can mention each other's books on social media. You can do newsletter swaps. You can do interviews. And that stuff pays off in the long term. I'll definitely caution those, be genuine about it. I think a lot of times people are like, oh, I just slap a ton of authors into my newsletter, send this stuff out, and you can be famous now. Like any sort of networking is like, work on making a really good connection. And then when you have friends in the author business, that's when, hey, you just organically start mentioning each other's stuff. Like, oh, hey, you want a book about like stone golems? Well, you should check out Ben Alley's stuff.
I think you're right. Absolutely. Yeah. This kind of feeds into my next and last question, is that building that network and that community, because it has so many benefits for marketing, as you said. But I'll ask the question. So, I was going to say, what are the best ways of staying up to date with such a rapidly changing industry and market? And I feel you might mention author networks in that as well.
Basically the same answer, right? It's just, you talk to people, seek out group. What I would say is join a lot of groups and seek out people who really know what they're talking about, and because there's the unfortunate thing is there are so many people giving bad advice to authors, it's unbelievable. There are more people giving bad. So if you have in your mind, there are more people giving bad advice than good advice, you're in a good place to start, trying to find something.
Yeah, correct.
So you join a bunch of groups. There's, I guess won't mention any names, but there's definitely like some very popular ones are good places to start,
Yeah.
and you go from there. And then, I found the most value though is when you meet people in those big groups, or you meet people who are in a similar kind of headspace as you, and then you narrow it down and you make a small group out of that. And then you can have like really good discussions with those people about what's working or what's not working, and things like that. I will say, one group I guess we can mention that SPFBO, the self-published blog off, self-published formula blog, whatever.
Self-published fantasy blog, yeah. Not Spiffbo. I refuse to call it Spiffbo.
It's a good place to start, and you can spread out from there, see what groups those authors are in, and even if you're not in a contest, you can group and in the Facebook group, for example, and where look up those authors and find out, hey, who in here has a similar book to me, and just reach out to them. Because one thing about authors, indie authors in particular, is they like to talk to each other. It's a solitary business. You're always in your office or on a park bench or Starbucks or whatever, doing it by yourself. When you get a chance to talk to somebody, hardly anybody's going to ignore your message, unless they're like super famous or something like that. They're not going to ignore your message. So just reach out to people and say hi and, start conversations.
That's it. Yeah. It's all about who you know.
Like everything.
Yeah, that's it. No, that's really great. Well, thank you so much, AC, for all of this like really useful information. It's interesting to get into your daily life, your schedule, and things like that, and how you do it behind the scenes. So, yeah, thank you for sparing your time.
All right, yeah. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Give us a reminder of where we can find your next book and where we can find your existing books. Where can we find out more about you? Tell us about that. Throw some links at us.
All right, yeah. So the easiest place to find out anything about me is my website. It's acobble, COBBLE.com. Got very creative with the name of that one, obviously. But yeah, you can find updates on everything I'm doing right there, links to all my books, things like that. And then, of course, Amazon too. Search AC Cobble and all my books come up. But definitely the website, you can find the links there. You can find the news there. I've got some freebies with newsletter signups and things like that. Got some great artwork that I really enjoy, that I've had commissioned, and that's the central depository of everything AC Cobble.
Excellent. We'll get that link up down at the bottom somewhere. I think you got links to Patreon as well, haven't you? Because you're quite active on Patreon.
Yeah, I've got Patreon for people. If you want really exclusive behind the scenes stuff, I share stuff there that I don't share anywhere else. Because it's a smaller group, and my wife can find out about this. I'm showing pictures of us, but you get books early there. You get chance to chat with me. You get stuff that I've got. Some like print copies of books that are not available for sale anywhere else. Only place you can get signed books. I've got these print copies of books that I've got like artwork and stuff stuffed in there that's not on the retailers.
Nice.
I do a weekly update with details of what's going on in my life. That, like I said, Facebook, I'm very I try and be funny on there, but I don't give any actual information about what's going on. So that's the place to be if you want that.
That's great. That's the beauty of Patreon, isn't it? Yeah. So we'll get those links up there. Hopefully, if people out there want to find out more, they can absolutely find you and enjoy some Benjamin Ashwood and some Cartographer as well. Well, thank you very much for joining us again, AC Cobble. You have a good rest of the day, and we'll see you on social media and everywhere else.
Okay, thanks for having me, and you have a good day too.